It's 9:31. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we adopt the agenda, we have a few changes. The chief would like to add 8H. And Chief, would you explain that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually would like, if it pleases you, sir, and the rest of the board, I would like to actually make 2 changes to the agenda. I would like to move new business, item 8G, preliminary update from meeting with property appraiser's office, to after 8C, the 2023 meeting schedule. I feel that information is pertinent for potential decisions that are on the agenda. And then due to the dynamic situation that the district is currently facing and the new information that becomes available to us under the current state of emergency that we are under, I would like to add item HJ relating to the board authorizing the fire chief to convene an RFQ, request for qualifications, and request for proposal committee, which by district policy, it requires the board's authorization for me to engage in that activity.
Was that 8?
8H.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, seeing those changes, any other changes to the agenda? If not, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'll restate the agenda items. We have 6 items under the consent agenda. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, we have swearing in of commissioners, election of BOFC officers, the 2023 BOFC meeting schedule. Pardon me. We moved preliminary update from meeting with property appraiser to just below C. Under D, we have approval community relations manager and salary range. We have preliminary Hurricane Ian cost estimates to date. We have the BOFC assigned reserve direction. And then we have the last one is the RFQ, RFP approval. If I got that right, that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Got something right today. All right, the first item is, before we go to the first item, I'd like to offer any public input on non-agenda items. If you would please hold your comments to 3 minutes or less. Do we have any public input? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting. The first item is consent agenda. You've all had an opportunity to look at those. Is there anything you care to add or discuss? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. No unfinished business. The first item is swearing in of commissioners, and we have 3 commissioners that won their election. It was very ceremony when we can. Okay, so if you stand. Raise your hand, right hand, and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
That I will support.
that I will support,
protect,
protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution.
the Constitution and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
And of the state.
and of the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold office
That I am
duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
Under the Constitution.
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of fire commissioner,
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of
Fire Commissioner.
on which I
fire
am now,
commissioner,
on which I am now about to enter, so help me God.
On which I am
of which I'm now about to enter, so help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, and you will need to sign one of those. Okay. Later on.
Thank you and congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is election of BOFC officers. And I want to say a few of the rules here, but I want to preface this by saying, unlike a Supreme Court nominee or term, our officers' positions are not designed to be for life. So just remember that one. I will call the office and ask for nominees. It is not necessary to second a nomination. If a position gets more than one nomination, the vote will be by secret ballot conducted by Colleen Brooks. Okay, so beginning the process, this would be for this chairperson's position, and for the office of chairperson, I nominate John Bennett. Are there any other nominees for that position? Congratulations, John. Okay, the next
Thank you.
item is the vice chair. Do we have any nominees for the vice chair?
I'd nominate Commissioner Wood.
Are there other nominees? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Oh, hey, my birthday. Okay, the next position, we can either split the secretary treasurer, but typically we have one person for both positions. But I guess do we have any nominees for the position of treasurer secretary?
Commissioner Nickel, if he was willing.
Okay.
Are there other nominees? Okay, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
you're gonna have to sharpen that pencil,
Dog's
buddy.
approved.
That's good. Okay, and if we,
I'll take the tutorial.
all right, that's a good
I
idea.
also have John's phone.
John can certainly help you with that.
You're in good hands.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item, the BOFC meeting schedule. And Chief, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, sir. So as you have in your packet, we have went through and we've developed a preliminary meeting schedule following the board's guidance from earlier this year, where we would have every quarter, we would attempt to have a work session as well as a board meeting. And we're moving ourselves to alternating times from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the evening to hopefully stimulate more community engagement and to facilitate those who are working and those who may be working during the day. They can attend evening meetings, and those where it's more convenient, especially during normal tourist season, that they can make an earlier meeting in the day. So we captured and we projected out. I know it's listed on the agenda that you're approving it today, but typically you have a month ahead of time from when you see the schedule. That gives us time to confirm and lock in those dates. So I provided that to you today in your packet to see what that looks like, to get any feedback. And if you're satisfied with that meeting schedule, we can move forward with locking in dates.
Okay, any discussion? I didn't see the dates.
I'd say I'm tentatively good with most of those dates.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay,
Larry, do you want to look?
okay, Jackie, any input on
No
those?
discussion here. I like that we're moving stuff at different times to give folks the ability to attend if possible.
5:15, okay.
Why are we saying?
Yeah, and are these kind of comparable to the
Yes,
dates?
yes,
this year?
yes. We went and we marched out, major holidays and major events, and we tried to keep it convenient to the community schedule, and tried to be the third or fourth Wednesday of the month when we could. So that way we have all of the financial records and the month ends closeout reports for you to approve.
Great. Okay, so we're going to get this sent out, and we'll vote on this at the December.
Yes, we'll vote on it in December, and we'll get the 2023 schedule. We typically, under normal circumstances, You have an opportunity to review it in October. We approve and post it in November, so people have plenty of time in the community. However, we know that the month of October was focused on response.
It was busy.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for putting that together. Okay, the next item is the preliminary update from the meeting with property appraiser, the property appraiser office. Chief, I'll turn that over to you.
All right, again, thank you all for accommodating this request and the change to your agenda. Myself and members of the senior staff, very early on, within 2.5 weeks of September 28th, Ian's devastation to our district and our community, anticipated economic impacts to the district. So we worked, my staff worked very hard to schedule a personal meeting with Matt Caldwell, the Lee County property appraiser, so we could start to forecast, because as you all know, we start our budgetary process immediately after the holidays in January. We start forecasting needs, assessments, and start putting together our budget. So this is critical data. A couple of important topics for the board to be aware of. First, Mr. Caldwell and his team is going to literally run the clock, not because of lack of staffing or resources, but the amount of data that they must go through and review. They will probably be right to the deadline to release soft numbers that will give us a preliminary snapshot, a better snapshot than what we have today. Secondly, based on very raw data that is being seen, our district is realistically, we should start planning fiscal year 23-24 to look at anywhere from a 30 to 40% reduction in ad valorem, or approximately $5 to $7 million in reduction of ad valorem. So to give you an idea, we're at about 14 million this year in ad valorem, so that would take us to approximately 9 million if it was this year. In addition to that, there is going to be a special session in the legislation. The legislators are going to have a special session for those taxpayers that have been devastated and their homes no longer exist, of a partial tax rebate and refund that they already have a formula adopted for the rest of this fiscal year. Now, we based on, again, raw data, that could be anywhere from 1.4 to $2 million reduction in this current adopted fiscal year. Now, the bright point to all of this is we were already anticipating some difficult economic times along with our community. The bright point on all this, in 5 to 7 years, it will come back. We have support from our state legislator, Adam Bontana, the Florida Department of Emergency Management, who swore that they are going to do everything within their power to help the district, you know, to ease the financial burden within the state's financial constraints. What that looks like, I don't know. There are numerous FEMA opportunities and federal and state opportunities, and we are doing the very heavy lift of navigating that. But I felt that was pertinent information for all of you to know, so we can start forecasting and thinking about what we may need to do moving forward. Again, I do anticipate we will survive. This is why we have reserves, and this is exactly why, through the board's consistent guidance over the years, we have built a nice reserve to lean on. So it's scary. It's scary for everybody. We have 64 families that are depending on us to make wise, prudent decisions, and we will get through this. But this is just one of many years that we will have to make some difficult decisions. I've been in contact and meeting frequently with our labor partners. They're anticipating it. And at the end of the day, what matters most to me as fire chief is that everybody that was employed on September 27th remains employed for the next 3 to 7 years. So, and I will move mountains and shake hands and kiss babies and do everything in my power to ensure that every one of our employees have a secure future. So, are there any questions for me?
None, thank you.
Are we, I know we temporarily froze our hiring processes. Are we going to suspend those indefinitely at this point, or for planned?
So at this point, we have one retirement that we have tentatively received in January 1st will be their last day. We're going to replace that person with somebody who, firefighter, paramedic, who was already in our process. The second point or another point on today's agenda under new business is the approval of the budgeted community relations manager position. That will be a position I'm hoping to get board approval with today. And I will fill that position because that position is going to be critical to the district, and it's the first lessons learned. We're going to have to strengthen and solidify various relationships, not only in our community, but outside of our community, all the way to the state level. And we need that resource. And right now, navigating the economic impacts is taking the majority of my staff's time, as well as navigating the recovery process to ensure that it's safe in doing so. The fire official who does a lot of our social media is quickly overwhelmed, and I need that public information and community resource position. But I'm going to be fair to the position I hire. They're going to know our economic state and that we first in, first out type positions, so.
Jim,
No questions.
Ron?
I'm glad that you're giving this, all this information, especially to keep the workforce in
Right.
place. That's critical.
Absolutely, that is critical to me, as I know it's critical to all of you, that our employees' security, long-term security should not be in question, that we will do everything that we can to make sure that them and their families are secure moving forward.
Absolutely. Okay, I don't have anything else, so, okay. Next item is, excuse me. Move that up, the approval of the community relations manager and salary range. Ron?
Again, commissioners, this is a position, this is probably one of our first mitigation actions from the lessons learned from Ian about the need for any taxing authority, any public safety entity to have a dedicated person to manage media relations and manage public information. We have done a good job for the last 20 years. Well, let me back up. We have done an okay job over the years. It has always been an ancillary to an ancillary to an ancillary task. And in the modern emergency service and emergency management world, it cannot be an ancillary to an ancillary task. I know we are a small operation, but this is critical, and we saw that during Ian, the criticality of getting timely information out to the community. In addition, building and solidifying our already strong bonds with the community is going to be extremely important for us as we navigate the economic impacts. Our fire official has done a tremendous job, far better than when I wore that hat. She is far more technologically savvy, and I thank her for that. This is a position that I see is going to be critical because we always want our message going to our community. We want our opportunities to engage, and we want our opportunities to give our why and what our vision is as we navigate the economic impacts of Ian. I've contained the job description as well as the salary range in your board packets. And I respectfully request and I urge you to please give due consideration for this approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments? Ron?
I agree with the chief. This is a position that's desperately needed. I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Jackie?
I also agree, coming from the world that I live in, it is critical that you have that voice that is speaking out for the fire department and is engaging the community and keeping them informed in a transparent manner at all times. So I strongly support this.
Jim?
I agree. From my experience, just in the last month or so, communication with the people that you're working for is critical. They're just desperate for it. And I think people sometimes conflate fire and town and county, and they don't understand the differences sometimes. And the messages can easily get mixed and confusing. And having someone who's paying close attention to this consistently on our behalf, I think will prevent any kind of misunderstanding or miscommunication or misinformation from being distributed to our community.
John?
I agree wholeheartedly. The organization runs pretty lean anyway, and given our circumstances currently with now the recovery mode, our personnel just don't have the time to dedicate towards this task. It's something that I've always felt strongly about, that we needed somebody. Again, I think we've done a good job at conveying our message on a regular basis, but our information is going to be greater. Our projects are going to be more in-depth and multi-agency coordinated than we've ever been. So I think this is the right move to make as an organization.
Thank you. And I also feel that in this last crisis, there should be a person to go to get the information, correct information, and it should not be the five of us. We should not be the ones that are giving the information out. I think that's some other government entities made a mistake by doing that, and it's cost them. And so we need the chief and/or this position to make the public comments, because they know what's going on at that moment. And so I totally support this. So I'll make a motion to approve the position of Community Relations Manager with the recommended salary range for the year 2022, 2023, and to allow the fire chief to begin immediate recruitment. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, at this time, we'll ask for any public comment. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Is there any public input? Seeing none, we'll close that portion. Any other discussion?
No.
Jackie?
None, thank you.
Okay, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. The next item, excuse me, preliminary Hurricane Ian cost estimates to date. Chief?
All right, Board, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So this is a circumstance we always knew was a possibility, living in a barrier island community, but never thought we'd live the reality. So I asked our Director of Finance, thank you, Jane, to go ahead and provide us some preliminary cost estimates. We captured that in your board packet, and as we anticipated, it has ticked up a little bit more. So we're sitting at just over $1.5 million for approximately 45 days of all-out disaster operations, which is putting us at or above our disaster reserve, which we've planned for and that we've had for quite a few years. And at this point, since our reserves are assigned, I am requesting direction from the Board of Fire Commissioners and approval for us to start pulling from a different reserve account based on my collaborative meetings with our Director of Finance. My recommendation is that the next reserve we start pulling out of would be our millage sustainment reserve. Since we're already pulling out of the capital improvement and bridge reserve because we're in that time of year, and we are expecting some type of reduction in the incoming ad valorem rate based on what the state legislators decide to do with the rebates and tax holidays. So my recommendation to you today is that you grant the fire chief approval for ongoing disaster recovery and reserves to move to the millage sustainment fund, which has just over $1 million sitting in it currently.
Okay. Now, are we on No, letter E or F.
Oh, I'm sorry, I blended the two.
That's okay.
That's next item,
I just-
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We don't care. That's okay.
Yeah, I'll
Just-
move that to F, I'll
those
strike
in.
all those comments. But, so the preliminary cost estimates is sitting at $1.5 million. That leads us to 8F. We obviously anticipate as recovery to our infrastructure moves up, continues, we're still waiting on our final numbers on the cost to restore headquarters. We're still looking probably another month for that facility, as well as very costly repairs that we are looking at to Station 32 to make that accessible. So we do anticipate continuing to incur additional costs above the $1.5 million. The good news is the amount of forced labor after November 15th will be subsiding, but our emergency declaration at this point continues to December 1st. So we will still be incurring some overtime expenses. That concludes
Ron?
80, yes.
I have a question about, do we anticipate that any of these amounts that we're spending will be reimbursable through FEMA or other methods?
So we have been getting insurance for facilities, correct? Do you have that amount, Jane?
Currently, it's sitting at about 600,000.
So we've already recaptured about $600,000 on our facilities. We are still, the FEMA and the state reimbursements, Jackie, is, Commissioner Lezak, is yes, there are numerous buckets of money. Yes, there is going to be numerous funding opportunities for the next 5 years in our community. How much and what is gonna be eligible is maybe yes, maybe no, and if it's yes, holding on to those federal dollars for the long term is a question and necessitates a lot of due diligence on our part. So it's a very convoluted system, and the answer is maybe.
Okay, so then my next part to the question is, we had someone who was assisting us with making sure that we were properly submitting and getting reimbursed for expenses. Would it behoove us to, and I don't, not that I want to add additional personnel, but would it behoove us to have an arrangement with someone or bring someone on in whatever manner we need to, that would continue to move forward with us as we go for the next few years, who specializes in making sure that we are finding all of the money that we possibly can find for reserves and then applying correctly and making sure we have the right documentation, et cetera.
So you must be reading my mind, Commissioner. Item H8H that I added to the agenda, I was gonna discuss that a little bit more when we get to the RFQ and RFP item. However, at this point, Kevin Guthrie with the State Director of Emergency Management has provided us Captain Tim Smith from Jacksonville, from their Office of Emergency Preparedness, who is working directly with Jane on finance. In addition, the City of Miami has also provided us their team of cost recovery specialists who are reviewing our forced labor submissions and helping with that. And as of yesterday, we just received from the state for a period of 30 days a cost unit specialist who will also be working with Captain Smith and Jane on our submissions and our Project B and Project E worksheets for the cost recovery. How quickly that moves, I don't know.
Okay.
And some of these projects require us, so for example, a temporary facility to replace Station 31 will necessitate the district to do upfront funding and then submit for reimbursement. So that's how this system works, and we're learning more every single day as we go along.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Okay, comments, Jim?
No, I think we should make every effort to recover whatever is out there. It does take probably a professional to help guide us in that respect. It's very
Actually-
it's very complex.
Actually, right now, we're talking about the assigned reserve direction.
Oh, no, Ian.
We sort of
calls-
conflated
Yeah,
them.
yeah, we kind of
We,
conflated them.
yeah, I'm trying to keep it sorted out, so
I know,
we
it's
know what
hard
we're
because
voting on.
they did sort of get conflated with questions and everything.
Yeah, okay,
And, so beyond that, I didn't really have much in comment.
okay. John?
I think we, do what's necessary in regards to the reserves, due to the cost. The recovery process as far as reimbursements is going to be lengthy, and that is not guaranteed. So we can't just sit and do nothing and wait for funds to come in. So I think it's a necessary move that we move some of that money and trust in our finance director and our chief to properly guide those funds to the right places and to keep us solvent.
Okay. Ron?
The cost, not the recovery, we've spent approximately 1.5 million in 45 days.
Yes.
Is that on labor costs?
Labor costs, and what else, Jane? What is the breakdown?
Actually, the bulk of it is, having the stations repaired and getting them back online right away. The bulk of it came within the first, 3 weeks.
Okay, and that was
And
600,000?
then, that's an estimate.
Well, yeah.
But yes, I think it'd be at least 600,000 with all the locations
Right,
combined.
so that took a lot of the disaster reserve. So the cost for labor will be dropping, I would think, since,
We anticipated, pending on what the impacts of Tropical Storm Nicole is to the community, the cost of labor in September, based on what's in your board packet, was $142,936. October was $160,000. Station recovery and damage mitigation was $600,000, and that was reported in October.
and that's pretty much complete?
It's still ongoing.
Oh, okay.
It's still ongoing.
How long will we have the captain who's working with Jane? Because there's a hurricane coming for them.
We, at this point, we have them as long as we need them, but that's always at the discretion of his city, as well as the state, how long they're willing to pay his salary and keep him on site. So, it's been a tremendous resource, and Captain Smith has been doing some good work in helping us navigate a very convoluted system.
And how much longer will the New York team be here?
New York team has been demobilized for 2 weeks. We have resumed, almost
Everything.
2 weeks. We have resumed command and control of all emergency operations.
Okay. And then finally, do you have any idea how much temporary 31 is going to cost? And when do you hope to?
We were initially, our initial cost estimates on a temporary facility was $2 million, because we were gonna be forced to put a trailer 17 feet in the air, elevated, and we were like, no, that's not feasible. So we are down to about $500,000. What the new 31 will be a temporary mobile facility, which looks very much like what the sheriff's office put in front of Red Coconut, tied down with the wheels on it so it's movable. So that is approximately where we're looking at now, at about 500,000. I'm hoping to get that lower.
Do you have a
I do not.
date,
I do not.
months?
I do not.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask for public input. Any public input, please hold your comments to 3 minutes or less. Seeing none, we'll close that portion. For the sake of expediency, I'll make a motion to approve the fire chief to utilize the millage sustainment fund as needed to fund ongoing disaster response, recovery, and mitigation activity from Hurricane Ian.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? Call a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next item is the added item 8H, and that is the RFP approval. Chief?
All right, Commissioners, so this was a last-minute item, add to the agenda at my request. So we seem to be getting new information daily from FEMA in regards to reimbursement as far as the state reimbursement, cost collection, and additional funding opportunities for what will be our new Fire Station 31 in the long term. However, to navigate that, it's extremely, there's different layers of federal requirements and there's different layers of professional expertise we're going to need. So I am requesting almost a blanket approval. So for the Station 31 replacement program, it's called the BRICS program. The federal requirements, and we're waiting for clear state and federal direction as they review our district policy, has to comply with the Code of Federal Regulations, Chapter 2, subsection 200.343, which is an extremely thick manual with all kinds of federal guidelines and documentation to how you procure professionals. There is a possibility, if we want to be fully capture all of those funds for the construction of our new facility, that we may have to go out to RFQ, RFP once again for an entire design team if they find that we do not meet every line within this manual and all of the federal regulations. So for expediency, and everything has a time limit related to this event, that is one of the purposes for me requesting your permission to convene RFQ and RFP committees as I deem necessary in the recovery operations. But most importantly, and Commissioner Lezak touched on this, is there are several buckets of money and they don't talk to each other and they don't interrelate with each other. The State Emergency Management Director, when I met with him on Sunday, strongly recommends that the district go out to RFQ and RFP and engage a disaster cost recovery professional team to come in and work directly with the district to ensure for not only the short term, the midterm, and long term, that we are capturing every grant, capturing every federal dollar to make sure our submissions are as close to perfect as possible that will stand the test of time. The last thing we want to do is have a $30 million facility and 7 years down the road, the federal government says, give us our 90% back. So that could be devastating. So that is the first RFQ that you will see go out from our team, would be to engage a long-term disaster recovery cost expert to come in and ensure that the district is meeting every benchmark and every standard as close to as possible to recapture not only all our costs, but any future mitigation costs that we identify. And I would respectfully request your approval to convene those committees as needed.
Okay, again, I'll ask for any public comment. You know, the 3-minute drill. Okay, there is no public comment, so we'll close that portion. Would you state the motion as you'd like to hear it, and then we'll
My recommended motion is a motion to approve the fire chief to convene an RFQ, RFP committees as needed to comply with federal regulations to maximize district cost recovery.
do we have the motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Jackie?
I'm sorry, you guys broke up.
Did you have any discussion items?
No discussion items, thank you. This is what I was looking for.
Ron?
Nothing.
Jim?
Nothing other than what I said earlier. I think this is critical to us being able to move forward, really.
John?
Just add a few things, and I had one question. I was able to attend this meeting on Sunday with the chief. A fine group of professionals in the room. There were folks from the state, local, plus ourselves, Captain Smith, FEMA. I mean, it was a very informed crowd that know these regulations. They've dealt with this before in Mexico Beach. We talked about the semantics of where we are with the design. We visited both the existing station and the proposed construction site. And I trust fully that this is the direction we need to go. The only question I had is, to your knowledge, is our existing contract designer, are they expressing any interest in participating in this process further?
All three of our disciplines, our architect, our engineer, as well as our construction manager, have expressed both frustration and interest in seeing this project to completion. And we hope we are hoping to at least retain the architect and engineer, but that will come from FEMA and the state to tell us. So they were happy to hear about that possibility. I'm expecting that answer later today or towards the end of this week. The construction manager is obviously very interested in the project, but very frustrated that due to federal regulations, he may need to recompete for the project. So yes, all of them are interested, and yes, our design team has already started to at least redesign with the necessary mitigation factors within that facility. So they've already started doing some work for us. So hopefully we'll have some plans that we could, if we have to get a new design team, we can say, this is what we want.
And can you summarize those major changes that are gonna take place from our original design?
So the major design changes, and particularly with the mitigation, is one, elevation. Currently, until the federal regulations update the flood maps based on Ian, right now we would be building the facility to the first habitable ground floor to 13 feet. Well, we know that isn't sufficient where we're at. We are going to build to the Ian standards for storm surge. We are going to build this new facility where it's at to what's known as IC 500 standards, which is going to incredibly harden not only the foundation, but the facility itself to withstand wind speeds in excess of 200 mile an hour. We are also, one of the greatest lessons learned is that our island, being disaster prone, being a barrier island, we absolutely need a multi-agency emergency operations center. Not a conference room with a bunch of tables in it. We need, for our community, a multi-agency emergency operations center where we can run routine things such as the boat races out of to major catastrophes like a Hurricane Ian. It's not if it will ever happen again, it's when it's gonna happen again. So we have to be prepared. Things like additional flood proofing for the bay doors, additional hydrostatic venting, even considering putting in apparatus lifts, so when we leave apparatus on the island, per our emergency management plan, we could potentially lift it up and out of the storm surge. Incorporating a safe room, so maybe next time we don't have to evacuate all essential personnel off the island and we have an immediate response factor on the island. And that safe room would have to be able to withstand winds and speeds in excess of 200 mile an hour. So I'm sure there will be many more mitigation factors, but those are the big ones that we are going to be looking at that would have made an immediate difference in not only command and control, but coordination of various assets that we had.
And then one last question that came to mind. Thank you, Chief. Does this RFQ process, will that also include our other facility improvements that we anticipate having to make?
If it crosses the FEMA requirements, so there's Project B and Project E worksheets. Project B is if I got this correct, Project B worksheets are for immediate recovery and a return to norm. Project E is more your mitigation and long-term recovery. Project B, there's different requirements that go along with them. So depending on what the cost threshold is, yes, the RFP might, so for example, Station 32 would like to completely re-engineer and redesign the flood barriers and flood proofing so they're higher, so we're more protected. That may need to go to RFQ, so we select the vendor that satisfies the federal requirements for reimbursement. Same thing with the elevator. The elevator at Station 32 is going to be a major mitigation factor. I would like to see the elevator mechanical room go from base floodplain to on the roof, because we're going to have a substantial cost with the replacement of that elevator. So The question is, yes, there's a very good likelihood that there may be an RFQ for elevator replacement.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, Chief, I assume that we're looking at building this new station on the Tops property.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to need to use the entire property?
Since there's always a very cumbersome and detailed cost-benefit analysis that the federal government does when they look at funding something like this, the answer to that question is yes. We will more than likely need to apply for an expedited zoning through the town of Fort Myers Beach and zone that entire property as fire station governmental usage. Now, the good thing is, if we do get the federal funding that is available and everything goes as planned that we hope for, we will not be coming out of pocket for a substantial amount of the cost of that facility. So the thought process of subdividing to help fund the facility will become a moot point. When it relates to the cost-benefit analysis to incorporate the design changes that we need to have, it would necessitate us to go to 4 stories. It is much more economical and will pass the FEMA cost-benefit analysis if we expand the footprint, which will take up more of the land. So my direction to the design team is design us the facility that will withstand an Ian and stronger, and situate it where it makes sense, so the next Station 31 survives.
I was thinking that the command center and things like that are gonna need an expanded footprint and parking and for some of
Yes.
those items, so, yeah, I'm in favor of, use the property. Luckily, we didn't sell that off.
That's correct.
Because that
That's
would have
correct.
been a challenge then.
The moon, the stars aligned in our favor.
They sure did,
In that
yeah,
regard.
and they will continue to.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. Okay, I don't have anything else, so, are we all set?
I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, so we're ready to move on to fire chief remarks, is that correct?
We have to
We
vote on
have
that.
to vote on the recommended motion still.
Right.
All right, so, we have a motion and we have a second. Is any other discussion?
No.
Okay,
None.
okay, then I'll call a motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next thing is now fire chief remarks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to give you a quick update on where we are with Station 31, our current facility. On November 3rd, after doing a detailed analysis and looking at, so we went through a series of evaluations when we talk about the temporary facility. We have a subject matter expert, Chief Larry Peterson, who's retired from the city of Jacksonville, built several fire stations, works with the state on projects just like this for temporary facilities after hurricanes. We came out, did an immediate site assessment within 21 days of Ian. Our initial thought was, okay, we had to mitigate the collapse hazard we had with that facility, which we did. And then we looked at restoring the facility to a point that it was usable for us. So when we got into the preliminary cost estimates, we first had to determine what the 50% rule was, determine, apply that with the town ordinances of adding 20% and then dividing it by 2, which we did. And what we discovered was we were looking at about $353,000 was our 50% mark. And we were going to be close to $600,000 or $700,000 to return the station to what we lost in pre-storm conditions, which is a requirement for FEMA. That obviously passes the 50% threshold, and with the damages we sustained on November 3rd, it was officially condemned, deemed substantially damaged by the building official for the town of Fort Myers Beach, and subsequently the building was condemned. At this point, we are working and planning, as I stated previously, for a temporary facility, which will be more than likely a 3-bedroom single-wide trailer that's on wheels and strapped down to meet the 170-mile-an-hour wind load. We're looking at using, on our Tops property, the small concrete pad at the corner of Estero and Gulf Beach Road. FPL can easily put a temporary meter, a temporary light pole. We got sewer and water hookups, which will save us money. with the initial capital outlay. We'll put a sunshade there, and we'll have a presence on that property for response. So that is currently the plan that we're working on. Jane has notified our insurance company that the facility was condemned, and we will more than likely, having a condemned property from a district liability standpoint, I will be consulting with Andy, and since the state and the county are handling debris removal and tear downs, I will move forward with removing that facility as quickly as possible to mitigate any threats or potential harm to the community.
So you say that the state is, and the county is gonna participate in removing that
Yes,
at our cost or at?
no, at their cost right now, debris removal and some tear downs they are assisting with. So we will try to get underneath that 60-day umbrella to bring that station down to the ground, because the last thing we need is somebody to go in and get injured or worse. You know, the neighbors restore and a part of the building collapses down on them or something like that, so.
And we will pay though to have that demolished.
I am hoping that the state will pay for it upfront to have that demolished and get the debris all the way.
Great. And then at that point, is our plan to sell that property?
I will work through Andy to negotiate, you know, what percentages look like, and then more than likely put that, with the board approval, put that property on the market for sale, is what my recommendation would be at some future point to you guys.
Do you think we should wait a while until the market stabilizes?
That would be my recommendation, because right now it's, you know, it's free and clear. I would wait to see, you know, there's no rush right
Right.
now.
Right? Any other? Continue.
And that, the other component is the BRICS program that I talked about for the new facility. What that program in a nutshell allows for is a 90-10 split, where the federal government will, if you have key mitigation factors, which I reviewed with you, the federal government has the ability to fund up to 90% of the cost of our new facility, as long as we can demonstrate the need, we can demonstrate the loss, and we can demonstrate the mitigation and resiliency that we are incorporating into the new facility. We have the ability to receive 90% funding. The other 10% comes from state and district splits. So ideally, it would be the state government would kick in 5% of the remaining cost, and the district would kick in 5% of the remaining cost. However, in certain disasters that reach a certain threshold, I learned yesterday that the governor's office has the ability to waive the district's 5% contribution. And that would be at a decision point further down the road than where we're at. So there's a potential for us to build this facility without even having to incur debt service. And it brings me back to the necessity of bringing on some disaster cost recovery experts that's dedicated to working with the district to ensure we put the best foot forward to get that funding and hold that funding for the long term. And that concludes my fire chief's remarks.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, at this point, we're at attorney report. Of course, there is none at this point, so commissioners' remarks. Let's let our new chairperson go first.
I guess I'll just start with, it's been a busy 5 weeks, 6, or actually probably 7 or 8 weeks since our last meeting. So proud of the district, its personnel, their dedication, their work. Thankful to our neighbors like Chief Rogers, giving us a temporary home for our meetings and supporting us in every way that they can. It's really the true definition of community, which I take real pride in observing and being a part of. Meetings have been great that I've attended, with the exception of some local agencies that I'm embarrassed by, but none of those we have control over. But the FEMA folks, the state folks, everybody that supported us, Captain Smith from Jacksonville is a great mind. If we could steal him, I'd recommend it. talk him into it, whatever it takes. He'd be an outstanding person down the road for us. The overall morale of the district, I think, is pretty good considering, I mean, we've all lost something and some of us lost everything. But the chief and I had the pleasure of sharing a hot dog at Station 32 on Sunday with the staff that was there and our frontline guys and gals. And they were upbeat. It was a normal Sunday, watching the game, having a barbecue, but thinking about their families, thinking about us, thinking about the district. And again, the one thing that just keeps coming back is how proud I am of our personnel and the job we've done.
Thank you. Jim?
I would echo Commissioner Bennett's comments regarding, I'm so very proud of the way we have responded to this catastrophe. It's very easy to let it overwhelm you, and I'm so proud of the men and women of the district that have continued to work day in, day out. It's not pretty out there, and it wears on you. And I really want them to know how much I personally appreciate and I'm sure everyone does really, the effort that they're making and the hard work that they're doing and the impact that it's having on them, and not to mention what's happened to them at home. So I just want to say thank you so very much to all of them, and thank you, Chief, for the tremendous leadership you have been providing in these very difficult times. It's been tough for the whole community, and I think you've been a good voice of calm in all of that, and I really appreciate that, and I'm proud of you as well. Thank you.
Ron?
I can't top any of that. Great. Congratulations to our 3 sworn-in commissioners. John, I'm sure you're going to do a very good job. Thank you to the staff, the firefighters, the staff, the civilians. I mean, it's just an outstanding effort, and I couldn't be more proud to be associated with this organization.
Thank you. Jackie?
I agree with everything you gentlemen are saying. I want to add in a thank you to the Jacksonville group for bringing us the fire truck and the ambulance. I was able to get down and meet a few of them that day that it got dropped off, and what a gift. Just incredible. The outpouring of all kinds of help from all over the place, from people near and far, has been mind-boggling and so very much appreciated. Kudos to the entire team, just like you gentlemen have said, and to the chief for leading us through this unimaginable adventure that we are all on. It's an e-ticket ride like I've never seen, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you on the board and with the team in the department to take us to the next level and bring us into the future. I think I'm very excited about what's coming. I'm excited to see the changes and the positive growth that we're going to have on the island, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. So thank you to all of you for your support and your steadfastness and your calm, thoughtful decision-making. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, not only from my hat as a commissioner, but from the other hats that I wear on the island. So it's about all that I have.
Thank you. And I just, obviously I reiterate what everyone has said and said it so eloquently. One thing that strikes me is that all of the staff, including our administrative staff and everyone, they've been impacted personally and not just in the business. Every one of us has some story to tell about how this crisis has occurred and how we dealt with it. And that includes the people that come from Connecticut or wherever. We forget that they gave up their families, their homes, to come down here to support us. And after, you become numb because you have your own stories to tell, but just tremendous outpouring. And when you really get a chance to talk to them, you find out how much this has impacted their own lives. So we are moving forward. I think we've also created a superstar, or we haven't created it. he created himself through this crisis, and that's Chief Martin. He is just phenomenal, and he was great, and now he's gone way beyond that. And it's so rewarding to see him, just keep growing and growing. And so I feel really good about the future, even though the island doesn't look so good now. I can't wait to see what it looks like in a few years, and especially under his leadership, the fire department is going to just thrive and do even greater things. So I want to thank everyone for their support over the last 4+ years as the chairperson. But as I said, it's not a position for life, and I'm just really happy that John is going to be our chair from this point forward. So with that,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
May I say something?
certainly.
Thank you all for the wonderful comments. It means everything to the troops, our folks. It really means a lot to us. I know you guys like to throw kudos on me, and I appreciate that. But please remember, I'm only as good as the people that serve with me and that I have the pleasure of leading. I think it's important when you wear the badge. You guys have all worn the badge or been in military service, and when you take that sacred oath that we all take to support and defend something, certain things come with that responsibility. And there's certain things that you assume and risks that you assume that are just inherent to you raising your right hand and taking that oath. What is not assumed for some of our employees of the district is for our administrative staff. And I just want to take a moment and, as all of you said, tell all my administrative staff, my civilians, my non-sworn people, we could not have done this lift without every single one of them and the time that they supported and they provided the support services to frontline operations. We could not have done it with them. So I thank you. I thank you all for your support, and the district's there with the community, as am I. So thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Would you entertain a brief public comment back on a previous agenda item, which was the general comment about the property appraiser?
Absolutely.
I apologize, I let that slip by. But for the record, I'm Gene Rogers, Fire Chief at South Trail Fire District, and I just want to, I know this is something that's on your radar screen, on all of our radar screens. I know it is. I think it needs to be said, is that as recently as 2 days ago, as fire chiefs, as agency heads, we were made aware that there is a special task force that's being assembled primarily through the property appraiser's office to discuss all these things, such as like the 50% rule, property tax values, where exactly this is going to go. I don't think any of us truly know. I attended a meeting yesterday. I went to the Lee County Board of Commissioners emergency meeting. Not much occurred there. A lot of this, quite honestly, is over my head as far as understanding it. But I think here's my point, is that I think the obvious needs to be stated from the agency heads and from possibly a position letter from each elected official's elected body, chairman, that just restates the obvious that ad valorem taxes are the backbone of the fire district's funding mechanism. Because we don't necessarily know as fire chiefs and as elected officials who is going to be tapped to speak for us on this issue. And I can tell you that I was urged to attend with some of my counterparts from the islands that were there. And I think that it's imperative that the voice of especially Fort Myers Beach and the Barrier Islands are heard at the property appraiser office, at the Lee County Commissioner level, and at the citizenry level from Lee County, to know that if whatever happens with these property taxes, we all live in this community, that it does and will have an impact on your ability to provide service moving forward. I know that's probably stating the obvious, but I think if we don't get in front of it now and put that out there, at least in a position letter, and make sure, I think my primary sense of urgency to my fellow fire chiefs and to my board and to this board would be to make sure that you have the right spokesperson and the right message to the people who need to hear it. And I don't know, Chief, if you wanted to tag onto that, but that's, I'm just learning some of this, and I think that it's not as much as hot potato to someone like South Trail, but it is to Fort Myers Beach. And I think that the right players need to be at that table. So,
Well put. Thank you, sir.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for your
your
comments. Okay, Chief, any response to that?
No.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, if none,
None.
then I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Hey, thank you
Thanks,
so much for
Jackie.
being flexible here with this today. I appreciate it.